This is the XPress 500 step-thru from Lectric, which is the brand's first full-size commuter e-bike. It comes in 2 spec packages with different prices and power levels, so you can tailor the bike to your budget and preferences, but it is a crazy low starting price of around $1,000. So did it meet our expectations based on that price? Let's take a ride and find out. Welcome to Electric Bike Report, where we provide you with detailed reviews, including data from real-world performance tests. My name is John, and I'll be walking you through the XPress 500 ST today. A couple of items of business before we get started. First, if you're in the market for an e-bike, we think you'll probably want to come back for all of our test data, so please make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Second, our high-quality reviews take a lot of time and effort to put together, so if we're able to help you sort through all the e-bikes out there and find one you want to purchase, please help us in return by using our affiliate link in the video description if or when you do make a purchase. Using that link helps us keep making these reviews, but it won't increase your cost, so really it's a win-win. Anyway, let's talk about our experiences on the XPress. I mentioned the 2 spec levels in the intro, and in this video we'll be talking about the base model with a 500 watt rear hub motor and a 48 volt 499 watt hour battery, but there is also an upgraded model with a 750 watt hub motor and a 672 watt hour battery that's priced a few $100s higher at the time of filming. There's also a high-step version of the bike that has more of a flat handlebar setup, but we'll stick with the step-thru or ST model with Dutch-style handlebars and a more upright riding position. We actually have the upgraded high-step in for testing now as well, so the video for that should go live shortly after you see this one. To start off with a few highlights about the XPress 500, I do want to touch back on its price. Lectric has kind of established itself as the manufacturer of $1,000 bikes, and they've done a great job providing excellent value at that price point, but I think it's fair to say that there are greater expectations with a full-size bike than there are with a folding bike. We'll run through the specs in a second, but somehow Lectric still managed to squeeze in all of the basics while keeping this bike fun, capable, practical, and of course affordable. Another highlight was the step-thru frame's upright riding position and overall comfort. This is what we like to call a city cruiser, since it combines a relatively light frame with curved cruiser-style handlebars, but this bike goes the extra mile with an adjustable stem that allows riders to customize the bike's fit and feel to maximize comfort. I really liked how this bike felt to ride, and I was able to set everything right where it needed for my own preferences. Finally, and this is another hallmark of Lectric bikes, I found even the base model of the XPress surprisingly peppy and powerful. As I said, this one has a 500 watt hub motor, but it has 55 Newton meters of torque and a peak of 1,092 watts. So generally speaking, it's on the more powerful side for its nominal rating. And Lectric also chose a torque sensor for this bike, so it can change its motor output based on how you pedal. Overall, I found that this bike felt really natural and responsive to pedal, which is not something I can usually say on a bike in this price range. Moving on, let's go ahead and run through the rest of the base model specs. So in addition to the motor and battery I mentioned, the bike has a 7-speed Shimano tourney drivetrain with a 46-tooth chainring and an 11 to 28-tooth cassette, which is operated by an over-the-bar thumb shifter on the right handlebar. It's spec'd with a hydraulic disc brake system that pairs 2 piston calipers with 180mm rotors. The bike has 27.5 by 2.1 inch Aerosun street tires from Chaoyang that come preloaded with slime, and there's a TC80 coil suspension fork with preload adjustment, a lockout, and 80mm of travel. The bike has a custom saddle over an integrated taillight. There's a headlight up front, and then up in the cockpit we have a set of locking ergonomic rubber grips on the Dutch-style handlebars. The bike's control panel's on the left bar, there's a throttle lever on the right side next to the shifter, and then the XPress has a color LCD display with a USB charging port. To wrap things up, the XPress ships as a Class 2 e-bike with throttle and pedal assist up to 20 miles per hour, but it can be unlocked to a Class 3 with pedal assist up to 28 through the display. Ours weighed 61 pounds, including the battery, which weighs about 7.5 pounds. The bike is UL 2849 certified, while the battery itself is UL 2271 certified. It has a total payload capacity of 330 pounds, including the rider. Its standover height is 18.5 inches. And finally, the ST model only comes in white, while the high step model has a black paint job. But that should cover everything, so let's move on to our test sections and see how this bike performed. In our first test, we looked at the XPress 500 ST's brakes. My fellow reviewer Griffin tested them by pedaling up to 20 miles per hour, applying the brakes, and then measuring the distance the bike traveled before coming to a complete stop. Every situation is a little different, so he did the same thing 3 times, and then we used the data to calculate an average stopping distance of 21 feet 2 inches. We thought the brakes felt good, and our test results backed that up. When looking at all the other commuter e-bikes we've tested, the category average is 22 feet 4 inches, so the XPress was about 1 foot and 2 inches better than average. We don't really have a clear reason why, as this bike weighs about what we'd expect for its style. It has a pretty good set of tires, and its brake system seems fairly standard with 2-piston calipers and 180mm rotors. The brakes themselves are unbranded, but the levers and calipers look a lot like others we've seen from Tektro, so if we're right on that, the fact that a reputable manufacturer makes them might play into the results. The numbers don't lie, and this bike performed really well in the brake test. We felt very comfortable and safe braking on this bike. Next is our speed test, which I did by pedaling the XPress 500 ST on the bike paths in each of its 5 pedal assist settings, and then observing my speeds. I tested the bike with the 20 mile per hour class 2 limit and the 28 mile per hour class 3 limit, and then I also did a throttle acceleration test to see how quickly the bike could get up to speed. Let's go see what happened, and then we'll analyze the results back here. All right, we are here for a class 2 speed test on the XPress 500 ST. So let's see, we are starting off with no pedal assist, kind of right around 10.5 miles per hour, maybe between 10 and 10.5, pretty comfortably. Let's go ahead and go up to PAS 1. Okay, so that motor engaged like very quickly right away. And this bike has a torque sensor, so it's going to give me kind of in return what I put in as far as power goes. So feels really natural, fairly low powered, but getting a pretty nice difference in speed up to kind of around 13, maybe a little above. A little windy out here right now, so yeah, between 13 and 13.5. Let's go up to PAS 2. Shift up to 5th gear. Definitely a bit of a headwind here, but we'll see what we can do. Trying to maintain kind of a consistent level of effort, and looks like we're getting kind of right around 17 miles per hour, maybe a little above. Okay, let's go up to PAS 3. Shift up to 6th. Picking up pretty quickly here to, kind of right at that 20 mile an hour limit, a little above. So I don't expect PAS 4 and 5 would be really any different, so let's just check that out real quick. Yeah, we're kind of holding just over the line of 20 miles per hour, maybe up toward 20.5. Finish things off in PAS 5. Okay, that seems good. Let's turn around. We'll check out class 3 mode, and I would expect a little bit more of a difference in PAS 4 and 5 there. So let's check it out. All right, we are back for a class 3 test, and we are starting off in PAS 1. I think a little faster than where we were in the class 2 test, so we're kind of right around 13.5. 14 miles per hour. Yeah, pretty comfortably. Let's go up to PAS 2. All right, definitely a little bump in power. Still feels really natural and very responsive. We are up to about 16.5 in PAS 2. Okay, let's, kind of climbing up towards 17 here. Yeah, somewhere in the middle there. Let's go up to PAS 3. Switch up to 6th gear. All right, definitely feels noticeably more powerful here. We're up to about 20.5 miles an hour, maybe 21. PAS 3, so let's go up to PAS 4. And we are up in 7th gear, which is the max, but gotta say, feels pretty good. No ghost pedaling, which is great. We are up to around 24 miles per hour, very comfortably, super smooth and easy at this point. I mean, I'm still pedaling, but you know, the job is very easy. There's not a whole lot of resistance on the pedals. Yeah, it feels really nice. So right around 23.5, I guess we'll say, is maybe a steady cruising speed here, and then let's finish things off in PAS 5. And again, you know, I'm not really putting a ton of pressure on the pedals. I could pedal harder. I'm pedaling a little faster right now just because of the gearing, but yeah, I mean, up to about 26.5. So that seems like a relatively casual pace, but let's go ahead and give it a little bit more, see what we can get out of it. All right, we are up to 28 and then a little above. Yeah, the motor's definitely shutting off there, so okay, we'll call it there. Let's check out the throttle. All right, so the last thing we have to do here is a throttle acceleration test from 0 to 20. So I'm in PAS 5, which will give us the fastest acceleration. So let's go ahead and see what happens in 3, 2, 1, go. All right, kind of a little ramp up into the power, and then we're picking up pretty quick here. 18, 19, 20. Okay, to recap those results, I started off by pedaling with no motor power at 10.5 miles per hour in the Class 2 test. My average speeds were 13.3 miles per hour in PAS 1, 17.2 in PAS 2, and then 20.3 miles per hour in PAS 3, 4, and 5. In the Class 3 test, things were very similar to start, but then the higher 28 mile per hour speed limit gave the bike some extra breathing room. I hit 13.9 miles per hour in PAS 1, 17 in PAS 2, 20.7 in PAS 3, 23.5 in PAS 4, and then 26.4 miles per hour in PAS 5. But the bike could easily get up to 28 with a little extra effort just because of that torque sensor. So if we graph that data, the Class 3 test shows exactly what we're looking for, which is an angled line with consistent increases in speed. We usually find that this gives the bike an intuitive, easy to use feel because the jumps in power line up with what you'd naturally expect. The Class 2 test data started off really well, but the bike got a little cramped in PAS 4 and 5 by that 20 mile per hour speed limit. Although A, this isn't uncommon on bikes that can switch between Class 2 and Class 3 modes, and B, we do our test on flat ground, and I'd expect to see a noticeable difference in results if we did the test on a hill. In the throttle test, the bike picked up quickly, but it didn't feel overpowered, just very capable. One thing I didn't show off there that I really like is that the bike's throttle power and speed are both tied to the pedal assist system, so PAS 5 will go up to 20 miles per hour very quickly, but the other settings aren't as fast or powerful. Overall, this bike did a really great job in this test, and I was also really impressed by how it felt. This is Lectric's first torque sensor, and especially on affordable bikes, those can often be kind of hit or miss, but this one felt really smooth and responsive. Next up is our range test, where we pedaled the XPress until its battery ran out of charge, and we used Strava to record our mileage. We did one test in PAS 5 to get a minimum range, and another in PAS 1 to get a maximum range, and both times the bike was set as a Class 2, which is the way that it ships. So again, with the base model's 499 watt-hour battery, we got a high and low end bracket of 28.9 and 48.2 miles. In the grand scheme, the XPress did a solid job in both tests. For comparison purposes, the average for other commuters with 500 watt motors we've tested is 29.8 and 54.9 miles, so this bike was technically a little below average, but the full story is a little more complicated. The bike's battery capacity is on the lower end when compared to many of its peers. The average there is 648 watt hours, so that helps to keep the XPress 500's price low, and also its results weren't unexpected with the difference in capacity. Ultimately, it turned out to be more efficient than we guessed it would be just based on its motor and battery specs. We expected the bike's PAS5 test would go for about an hour and give us roughly 18.5 miles. We got an extra 10 miles and 33 more minutes on the bike than we expected, which was likely a result of the bike's torque sensor. We're really satisfied with these results as they line up well with other commuters we've tested, but on a more practical level, this bike can clearly handle a long ride to work and back every day, even when using a high assist level. I found myself usually riding in PAS 2 or 3, especially in Class 3 mode, so if you don't have a ton of hills and you can back down a little in power, I think you'll likely be able to take a good few rides before needing to recharge. The last of our test sections is our hill test, which we do at a place called Hellhole Trail. For consistency, our tester Justin takes every bike up this path and tests out its throttle and the highest level of pedal assist. The path itself is paved, it's a third of a mile long, and it has a 12% average grade, so it's not something you'd likely want to pedal up without a motor. Let's go see how the XPress did, and then we'll talk a little more about the results back here in the studio.
All right, we're out on Hellhole doing the throttle test on the Lectric XPress 500. And I don't have a ton of hopes on this, given that it's a 500 watt rear hub motor. It's kind of their step-thru upright. But it's actually doing fairly well. So right now we're right around 9.5, 9.2 miles per hour, 9.1, 8.6. See where it bottoms out, 8.4. So through that first steep section, bottomed out right about 8.4 miles per hour, which is really, gonna be honest, it's about 2 to 3 miles an hour faster than I thought it would be. The motor so far has been fairly quiet. I'll let you listen through this next steep section, and then right after as we speed up. So bottomed out just about 9 miles an hour there, and I don't even know if you'll be able to hear the motor on this. It's very quiet. I hear the hub clicking more than the motor by far, which is really nice. So yeah, again, I was kind of, my first question was this actually going to make it up the hill on throttle? The answer is yes. We'll go check the tape and see how overall it did, but in general, I'm pretty impressed. Okay, we are back at it on Hellhole. Now the pedal test with the Lectric XPress 500. I'm in 7th gear. So far feels pretty good. I'm going to go down to 6th, get a little higher cadence here. Down to 5th, going about 12.8, 12.3 miles an hour, 12.1, 11.8. Kind of bottomed at about 11.7. I'm not pushing very hard on the pedal, kind of letting the bike do its thing. I mean, Lectric's PWR system, you do get more out of it, not like a torque sensor, but you do get more if you push more. But it feels really nice and responsive. It feels very natural climbing the hill. You know, through that section, got down to 11.9. Motor, I let you listen to it, but you're just not going to hear anything. Yeah, it's just very quiet, very subtle sounding, yet still fairly powerful for 500 watt rear hub motor. So curious to see what it does. Let's go check the tape and see how it compares.
So the XPress 500 ST did a great job in both portions of that test. Justin finished the throttle test in 1 minute and 27 seconds at 12.5 miles per hour on average, which is 17 seconds faster than the 1 minute and 44 second average for all the commuters we tested. Justin's pedal test lasted 1 minute and 12 seconds, where he had an average of 15.1 miles per hour, which is about 9 seconds faster than the current commuter average of 1 minute and 21 seconds. We attribute this bike's success to its motor output. 55 newton meters of torque is nothing too out of the norm, but a peak of 1,092 watts from a 500 watt motor definitely is. This is fairly standard practice for Lectric though. They usually prioritize quick and easy hill climbing by speccing their bikes with powerful motors that have a bit more juice than average. Now, I mentioned earlier that I spent most of my time on the bike in PAS 2 or 3, and even in those lower settings, I found that the bike had plenty of power for smaller and medium-sized hills, so there really shouldn't be much need to use those highest assist settings unless you're dealing with a monster. But the bottom line is that this bike can handle even extreme situations without really breaking a sweat. I'm giving it a solid 2 thumbs up here, and that's about all there is to say. We have one last thing to discuss about the XPress 500 ST, and that's the bike's ride quality, or how it feels to ride. Let's hit the bike paths one last time and talk about some of the basic elements that contribute to its feel, and then we'll dive in a little deeper once we get back here. All right, so let's talk about ride quality here on the XPress 500. So as we've discussed, this is a Dutch-style city cruiser with an upright riding position. And that is adjustable though, so there's a single frame size that's made for riders from 5'2" up to 6'3". There's about 12 inches of adjustment in saddle height, and then there's a quick adjust stem so that you can change your handlebar height and your reach. So I'm 5'11", I'm kind of on the top end of the height range there, but you know, feels great. I've got good leg extension. I have the stem set fairly high, so you know, my arms are comfortably placed, feels very ergonomic, and just really good all around. So let's see, we have a suspension fork up front to help sort of smooth out the ride that has 80 millimeters of travel. So, you know, enough squish to handle bumpy pavement or even things like speed bumps. We have 27.5 inch by 2.1 inch Chaoyang Aerosun tires, which is pretty much exactly what we would expect on this style of bike. So, you know, a nice tread pattern for paved surfaces and enough width to be stable and also add a little bit of cushion there in addition to what the fork is doing. And then we have a 500 watt hub motor with a torque sensor. And, you know, as we've seen in the speed test, that the bike will give you more up to whatever speed limit you have it set to as you pedal harder with different levels of assist. And then of course you can change to class 3 speeds. We're in class 2 mode right now, but that covers kind of the basics. So let's bounce back to the studio and wrap things up. So I talked a lot already about this bike's comfort factor, but it's worth reiterating that that is a really big element of the ride. I'm usually kind of hit or miss with this city cruiser style, but I think this bike balances comfort and power extremely well. Of course, the different assist levels and the bike's torque sensor both play into that. The XPress can definitely be fast if you want it to be, but if you prefer a more relaxed ride, it can do that too. Overall, everything felt really great, but there was one minor area with some room for improvement. Shifting could be a little bit awkward with the over-the-bar Shimano tourney thumb shifter, especially with the location of the throttle lever. I think a trigger-style shifter with the throttle moved to the left bar would work a little bit better for easier and more comfortable shifting. One big thing to appreciate about this bike, though, is its simplicity. As we usually find on bikes in the more affordable tier, there aren't too many bells and whistles here, but this bike also isn't really lacking anything essential, so that just means that it's easy to use. If you are commuting every day, you might want to consider adding fenders and a cargo rack, which don't come standard, but they are available at a very reasonable price, either at or after purchase. Considering that this bike is Lectric's first full-size commuter and the first of its bikes that uses a torque sensor, I had really high hopes for the XPress 500 ST, and I was not disappointed. This is a seriously great bike for the price, even at the base level spec, and that's not factoring in what it can do with an upgraded motor and battery. Looking back at our test data, the bike was roughly average or above average in all cases when compared to similar commuters. That's not easy to pull off at $1,000, so we give Lectric some serious kudos for putting this bike together so well. Of course, it's not perfect, but our one area of critique is relatively minor. We think a different shifter and a left thumb throttle would be a better fit than the current setup, which includes an over-the-bar shifter and a right thumb throttle. Honestly though, this is an easy bike to recommend if you're looking for a comfortable cruiser-style bike for leisure rides, or more of a workhorse to get you to and from the office every day. We think it's a great choice for anyone looking to get a full-size bike on a budget, and of course, if you have a lot of hills in your area, this one will make sure you don't need to work up a sweat. If you want to take a closer look at any of the XPress models, you can head over to Lectric's website using one of the two links down in the video description. The other will take you over to electricbikereport.com, where you can read our written review for this bike or hundreds of others. Again, please make sure you use our affiliate link if you decide to make a purchase, as it really does go a long way. And be sure to subscribe to the channel so you can see our review for the upgraded XPress with the larger battery and the 750 watt motor once that goes live. Please also consider giving this video a like, and feel free to drop us a line down in the comments section. But thanks for taking a ride with me today. Again, I'm John with Electric Bike Report, and this was the Lectric XPress 500 ST.